Everything that I'm about to explain to you today, straightforward, none of it could come to fruition. None of it can come true. As much as I love Howie Roseman, as much as I love Nick Sirianni as their coach, as much as Jalen Hurts has fulfilled the prophecy of being the future at quarterback, none of this is possible, what we're going to discuss today, if it wasn't for one man. And that one person really doesn't get talked about a lot. That is the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie. So stick with me. I'm going to explain a lot of things here about contracts and the future of the Eagles. All right, y'all. Let's get it. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. Guys, we're going to talk about, I guess, step one, if you want to say it, towards free agency, right? The new league year, which is going to start on Wednesday, but we are now entering the legal tamper phase of free agency, where we can legally start talking about contracts, although they can't be finalized until Wednesday. What I want to say is, when you go through and you look at the Philadelphia Eagles cap situation, all right, before everything started happening, Brandon Graham and Jake Elliott, okay, there were really only 5 guys who could afford the Eagles, you know, the ability to kind of have cap flexibility without being cut. Being cut kind of solves a lot of, you could cut some smaller time players and save yourself some money. But I think the problem with that theory is when you cut a guy, you then have to replace the guy. And at the end of the day, you're probably really not saving any money when you do that. So, one player, it already came downhill. Everything's already been done with him. Jake Elliott's already restructured his contract and gave the Eagles about $2 million worth of cap flexibility. The Eagles then followed that up by signing Brandon Graham. So right away, we have 2 moves that are kind of already off the table. And then today, a third thing came down. The third thing that came down is T.J. Edwards has, partially, nothing is finalized until Wednesday, guys. I want to make that very clear. See some guys who backed out of contracts last year. J.D. McKissick. So there's definitely been some guys who backed out of these contracts. But currently, T.J. Edwards has agreed to a 3-year contract with the Chicago Bears. So we would move forward in this video as if he is now officially the first domino to fall. But what I want to say is the theory I'm going to tell you, the thing that Howie does, okay? Howie will take large base salaries, convert them into bonus money, and then prorate them, meaning spread them out over years to which they pay back to the league. A lot of times people see this as a player taking a pay cut, and that is not what is happening, guys. It is the exact opposite. That player is getting money that may or may not have been guaranteed, he may or may not receive, and it's being dumped in his lap immediately, okay? It's a large sum payment being paid to the player, and then in return, the organization gets to take that number and pay the league back in installments. So it brings down the cap number on that player. This only happens if you have an owner like Jeffrey Lurie who is willing to pony up the money to convert that immediately into money. Because what you're doing is 2 things, guys. Number one, you're paying a dude right now. Right now, you're forking over millions and millions of dollars to a player. But number 2, you're forking over those millions and millions of dollars to a player to manipulate the cap to then bring in another guy that you're going to eventually pay millions and millions of dollars to. This is what they call kicking the can down the road. This is the type of cap management that Howie Roseman has been excellent at. He's only really been caught a couple of times, with his hands in a cookie jar. You could definitely say the Alshon and the Malik Jackson contracts, he got caught with his hand in a cookie jar. But when you really look at the totality of what Howie has done, man, he is really freaking good at this. But I want to make this point clear today. This does not work unless you have an owner who's willing to eat this, who's willing to take on the task, who's willing to take on the money. I think there's a lot of GMs who would love to do what Howie does. I'm not saying they would be as good as it is Howie, because let me tell you, you start having your owner pay out millions and millions of dollars to players that don't work out, you're going to get fired. Lots of these dudes would love to do it. There's not always a Jeffrey Lurie that owns a team. This is kind of the area no one ever talks about. This is what separates owners that have deep pockets and are willing to spend money to win games. This is what separates them. It's this really unique way of manipulating the cap. The Eagles are excellent at it, and Jeffrey Lurie is a really big reason why we are. I want to add to this how good this organization is from the top down. Even the contracts that we really got burnt on, right? Like the Malik Jacksons and the Alshon Jeffreys. A lot of people can say, yeah, Gate, that was mostly due to injury more than anything. But that's just the point, is how good we are from the top to the bottom, because we innovated. We were once one of the most injured football teams in the league. It was astonishing in 2020 what happened to this football team. What happened? This organization innovated, was already at the forefront of sports science inside of the actual front offices, okay? Sports medicine and that type of thing. And then we started looking at the way that we practice. There's just from the top to the bottom. Man, this is one of the best organizations, hands down, and this always gets left out of the conversation. There are 4 remaining guys who can give us cap flexibility this season, guys. Darius Slay, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Quez Watkins. I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm about to say. When I say they can give us cap relief, that does not mean that they are forsaking pay. That is not what I'm actually proposing to you. It means that they would take part of their base salary, get this into some sort of bonus money, and they would be paid it more than likely right away. It means they would get a cash settlement. And there's different ways of doing this. The first way to do this is what they are trying to currently do with Darius Slay, which is as part of a negotiation to essentially extend your contract. It's going to come along with restructuring your current deal. It's going to coincide with each other, right? We're going to take that large $17 million base salary you have, Darius Slay. We're going to convert that into some bonus money that would be put onto an extension. And then we're going to prorate that number to kind of make this, we're going to borrow from 2024 and 2025 to have money in 2023, essentially. And what we're going to hope for is that TV revenues keep going up and we never feel, the burn of that, that price sticker. To be quite honest, that's what they're doing. So, the holdup with Darius Slay, guys, has everything to do with 2024 and 2025. It has everything to do with getting those numbers in the subsequent years. It has nothing to do with 2023, guys. It's all about 2024 and 2025. Whether it's over the actual figure, the monetary figure, the money that he would be making, or whether it is over the actual length. Say the Eagles only want to carry it to 2024 and they don't want to guarantee 2025, but Slay wants 2025. I'm not getting involved in all that, guys. I don't work inside the contracts. I don't work with the accounting department in the Eagles. I know some of the nuances behind this stuff, but I don't work for them. I'm not getting myself involved in that. So, he's number 1. Lane Johnson, $14,155,000 in base salary. His overall cap hit is $24 million, but only $14,155 can be moved. With Lane, I think that's probably a situation where they would love to have him also be a restructure and extension together. But I don't know how much more Lane wants to play. I mean, that's a decision on Lane. How much more do you want to put your body through this? He could be a guy that either restructures and extends, or he could also be a guy that just restructures the money. He just takes some of that and gives you some cap space, and then you pay him right away, and then he'll let you prorate it down the road. We'll see what happens there with Lane Johnson. That's what Jake Elliott did, guys. Jake Elliott just simply moved some money. He didn't extend any further. He had just signed an extension not that long ago, so he just took some of that money and then just kind of reverted it for him. Lane may do the same thing. Getting back to the other big-name player here, the biggest of the names, is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has a cap hit of $4,789,486. $4,204,000 of that is actually in a base salary. This is what could be, and obviously this would 100% be along an extension. If I was Jalen Hurts, I would not do this unless you're giving me an extension on top of this. This is where you restructure for 2023. You receive some of that money up front. I don't know how much of that, you have to make a league minimum, but you're taking a chunk of that. You're restructuring this, right? You're going to convert this into a signing bonus. You're going to get that money right away, and the Eagles are going to be able to take that figure and spread it out along with your new contract. That's going to come with its own signing bonus. It's going to come with its own, cap figures. That's a whole lot of maneuvering, guys, to be quite honest. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's not part of the future here for what they're going to do in terms of, when I say future, he's obviously part of the future, guys, but future in terms of how they're going to get 2023's cap together. Because he's one of the few players that actually gives them the ability to do anything. And then the last guy is Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins has a $2,743,000 base salary. His cap hit is $2,785,416, so just about all that, very little of that is anything outside of his base salary, which means he could be traded, he could be cut, he could be restructured. There's a million ways to get money back from Quez Watkins. The problem you got to account for here is that while we may be a little down on Quez and we think Quez underperformed, and rightfully so, you still got to keep in mind he's under $3 million. And if you cut him, you need to find then a said player who can come in here, be just as impactful, if not better, for the sticker price. And that's where you get yourself in trouble. The sticker price can get you in a lot of trouble. So you got to be careful with that. He's another guy that could restructure. They could do a ton of things with here to basically make this work. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to ask something like about Landon Dickerson and some other guys, because Landon Dickerson is the 5th highest player right now in terms of base salary. As Paul pointed out, Paul and I were having a conversation, and I do believe that Paul is absolutely 1,000% correct on this assumption, which is if a guy has not accrued 3 years in the league, you can't work with his contract in any way. Now, normally when you hear this discussed, they're talking about extensions. You can't extend a guy. This is what the Eagles used to do, and then they stopped the Joe Banner in this. This is the Banner rule. They stopped us from actually extending guys before the 3rd year. I think that, the way Paul's looking at it, and I think Paul is correct, is that the league would look at this and say this is no different than extending. Even though you're not physically giving Landon Dickerson an extension, if you're taking money and you're playing with his contract. You're playing with his contract, and that's kind of a no-no in the first 3 year of a player's deal. You have to wait until after that 3rd year for that to happen. So there's definitely some things that make you think that cannot happen with Landon Dickerson. Of the free agents who are available, and this is where I think if you see anything in week 1 of free agency, guys, if anything comes down the pipe in week 1 of free agency, what do I think would happen? Keeping our own guys. I think keeping our own guys would probably be the big moves because this is a Super Bowl roster. So keeping our own guys is probably the big moves that would come down in week 1, and then you value shot past that. I want to run through some of the numbers in terms of what I found from the calculated market value from a lot of these players, okay? Number 1, James Bradberry. I'm going to share with you what his calculated market value is. It does not mean this is what they will be paid. It's what is being assumed. 3 years, $45 million, roughly $15 million AAV. Mind you, it doesn't mean every single year he makes $15 million. There's a flavor to how you mess with the cap. But that's what they're saying on an AAV value basis. That could be a front-loaded contract, could be a back-loaded contract, could be a lot of different things. Doesn't mean he has to sign a 3-year contract. He could sign a 5-year contract if someone wants to give a 30-year-old 5 years. There's all kinds of ways. But the Eagles do love those 3-year contracts that are really 2-year contracts that are back-loaded, not front-loaded. That's how they like to manipulate things. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The calculated market value for C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a 5-year deal worth $60,658,000 in an AAV of about $13.3 million. Once again, could sign a 3-year deal, could sign a 5-year deal, could sign longer theoretically. But that's, it's going to be around that AAV is what they're predicting. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's a tough one, guys, because he's a really, really good player and he's very versatile. I think that C.J. Gardner-Johnson fits certain schemes way better than other schemes. For the Eagles, though, he fits your scheme quite well. So, Marcus Epps. Marcus Epps didn't have a calculated market value. I'm not too sure what's going on there. And maybe because, I'm not sure. Maybe because the Eagles claimed him off of waivers when he was just like 1st or 2nd year in the league. I'm not from the Vikings. I'm not too sure what happened there, guys. I can't tell you. But what I did is I went back and I looked at 2 guys who were similar in age to him who signed contracts, which was Jordan Poyer and Marcus May. They were about 28. Marcus Epps will be 27. Those guys, I think, are like 19th and 20th in terms of safety pay from an AAV value. I think that's right roughly around where you would find Marcus Epps' value. I can't see Marcus Epps being a top 10 guy in terms of the safety class. I could be wrong, but I think he'll be 20th, if not even a little further back from that. So what did those guys get paid? And just kind of my own little projection here. What do I think here? 2 to 3 year contract worth about $19.5 million to 2020 to about $22.5 million. Sorry, so 19.5 to about $22.5 million, guys, with an AAV of about 7.5 to 9.75 million. So under 10 million, right? Between 7 to 10 million. And I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't even come under that $7 million figure by like 5 or 6 million, to be honest. But roughly speaking, that's the value from looking at similar players. All right, Fletcher Cox, 2 years, $28 million, $14 million is the AAV that they have listed for his calculated market value. I don't think Fletcher's going to quite get that much, but stranger things have happened. It just depends. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The Eagles made that deal on a 1-year basis just last year with Fletcher. I don't think the Eagles would make that deal personally. I think that they would probably want a little better of a deal than that. Kaiser White, 2 years, $17 million, $8.5 million AAV is the calculated market value. Very favorable terms. Still think that Kaiser could be a guy, too, that if he's still there in week 2, week 3 of free agency, now we know that T.J. Edwards is moving on, you might be able to get him for even a little teeny bit less than that. I'm not saying he's going to go for much less than that, but you might be able to get him for less than that, to be real with you, if you just stay patient. Because this is still a decent linebacker class. Kaiser White's a good player. I was really high on Kaiser White last year, guys. You know that I said he'd be a really good fit for the Eagles. I still think that if you put Kaiser White as your Will, Nakobe Dean as your Mike, I still think you're cooking with gas. I still think you got two young guys in the lineup. Two fast, quick guys on top of that. So, I mean, it is what it is, guys. But I'm looking at internal first, and then when you get past the internal phases, then where's the market at? Where's the good market value? I'm not saying Howie's done some good things in week 1. The first week, Hassan Reddick, right? Great deal for Hassan Reddick, man. Hassan Reddick's market, for whatever reason, wasn't what people thought it was going to be. And, man, the Eagles got a steal. Eagles got a heck of a steal, right? Go back to 2020, first week. They signed Javon Hargrave out of free agency. Incredible deal. 3 years, $39 million for Javon Hargrave, $13 million a season? We stole Javon. We stole Javon out of that free agency class. Patience pays inside of free agency, guys, and please don't forget that. Don't forget that as all the hype starts happening. Patience pays. Let some clowns win day 1. Let those clowns win day 1. It ain't good to win day 1 of free agency, guys. It's not. Just go through the history and you can see. It's not good to win day 1 of free agency. You know when you want to win free agency? It's past like week 2, week 3. When you start winning free agency past that date is when I think that's when the real values are. That's when you can really find the hidden treasure, the hidden gold. Even though we've had a record of finding, I just named 2 guys that were really, really good signings that were in the first week of free agency. Truth be told, man, the real diamonds in the rough aren't happening on the first week of free agency. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Leave your comments down below. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see y'all in the next video.